Assemble! Stay dandy, baby. The year is 2020, and in this year there's going to be a massive evolution in anime. And not just any evolution, Digi-evolution. That's right, my friends, get ready for the grand return of the Digimon anime series, known in Japan as Digimon Adventure. Let me tell you guys, I did not know that there was going to be a brand new remake of the original Digimon anime coming out until like a week ago. I know that over the course of the last couple years, the Digimon anime has been getting a lot of eyes on it because they've been making all of these sequels to the original show, but really that all seemed like it was preparation for the return of the original series that made it popular in the first place. And as a kid who grew up in the 90s obsessed with Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon, you know my ass was watching some Digimon Digital Monsters. This was an anime series which really blew my mind at the time, because this was a point in my life when I was obsessed with Pokemon, and then suddenly here comes this show which almost seemed like a clone of it. At least at first and in name only. I mean, when you hear Digimon and Pokemon, they just sound so similar to one another. But as a kid, and even now as an adult, there's one thing I always recognized. While I really liked the Pokemon games, I always felt that Digimon had a better anime adaptation in terms of story, characterization, and of course the actual world building itself. A digital world, unlike anything that I've ever seen before, and I became completely obsessed with watching the show. I loved the very first season, with Tai and all of his friends making their way through the islands, making it back to the real world, taking on Myotismon, taking out the Dark Masters, and saving the entire digital universe. I became even more obsessed in the second season when we got the introduction of a brand new cast, lots of more Digimon, and tons of really interesting villains, one of which tied it directly into the first season. And it just sort of ended. There were a lot of other different seasons of Digimon which had nothing to do with the original Digimon Adventure, and I was just kind of done with the franchise. That is, until where we are today, when we get to see that they have decided to reboot the original series and actually tell it in a completely different way for a modern audience while still retaining that 90s aesthetic. And that is what made the very first episode of Digimon Adventure 2020 so damned nostalgic. It really made me feel like a kid again while I was watching this series, and yet at the same time it still felt all brand new. So basically, I'm not here to recount the entire story of the previous season. I'm just here to talk about the brand new show, and I'm going to do everything in my power to not compare it to the original. What I will say is a lot of the aesthetics here are still exactly the same in terms of the character design, the actual look of the Digimon themselves, but the actual story kicks off in a completely different fashion. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and enter the digital world. As I said earlier, this series is a full reboot, taking place in modern day in 2020, and then we immediately open up with our main character, Tai, who in the Japanese version is known as Tai Chi. I didn't know that, but that's his name, Tai Chi. It makes perfect sense. And just like in the original series, it looks like he's getting ready to go to camp while his sister and his mother are going off and doing some errands on a train. Right before he goes off, he is met by his friend Koshiro Izumi, who I believe was called Izzy in the original American version of the show. And basically, just like the original show, they become friends until something really bad starts going on in the city, and all of the subways start sort of going out of control. And that's all because of something that's actually going on within the digital world itself, which already seems to exist in some sort of capacity and format. Koshiro, being the genius that he is, realizes actually what's going on, and of course Tai's freaking out about his family. They decide to go down to the subway station to see what's wrong. And through some crazy psychedelic acid-filled events, Tai Chi finally makes his way to the digital world. I'm not sure how any of this happens. Just like in the original series, they seem to be connected via these Digivices and these weird crests which allow them to be connected to a Digimon partner. And when Tai actually arrives, he meets a young Digimon, which is none other than Koromon, who eventually transforms into the Agumon that we always loved. Now, in the original show, I always watch it in English. So Agumon had this very distinctive voice, and getting to hear the Japanese voice of Agumon, I have to say, was very weird, to say the least. He does not sound at all what I thought he was actually going to sound like, but after watching him for an entire episode, I'm already pretty used to this new version of Agumon. So the rest of the episode basically focuses on Tai Chi and his brand new pal Agumon as they have to battle against this crazy virus-like Digimon, which is causing all of these problems and causing all of the electricity electronics in Tokyo to sort of go haywire, which could eventually result in the subways just sort of like going out of control and all of the trains just sort of slamming into one another. It's pretty dangerous stuff, so the stakes are already immediately high, and again reminded me why I like Digimon so much more than Pokemon. It's not just the random super happy battles that everybody's having and the power of friendship. A lot of that stuff is still going to be there, but it's that Digimon always had stakes. Despite the fact that this was a cute series about monsters fighting each other, there was always a world to save. There were people in danger, and that added a lot to the series, which made it seem like it wasn't actually talking down to its viewer, and that's exactly what's going on in this episode, as Taichi and Agumon fight back against all of these virus Digimon, which eventually become this one massive version of itself, which evolves, or digivolves. I don't know if they're ever going to refer to it as Digievolution in this show, but that's basically what happens here, and Agumon desperately tries to fight back against it until eventually he's captured before he starts to digivolve himself in a really cool scene, which I have to say looks aesthetically really awesome. And of course he transforms into Greymon from the original series, his giant Tyrannosaurus Rex form with like a giant horned helmet. It looked awesome in the 90s, it still looks awesome now, and he manages to take out this big thing in a massive standoff battle as they use their superpowered attacks. He manages to destroy it, saving the day, the digital world, and the people who are being subjugated by all of these viruses. It looks like Taichi's family is going to be fine, and basically this is the beginning of a brand new friendship between these two characters. What's the rundown on this first episode? This is completely different than the original show altogether. Not only has the entire premise been completely changed about the fact that these kids are going to be trapped in a digital world, but now it looks like the entire premise is going to involve them slowly going to this other digital place to take down monsters. I don't know, maybe eventually they will get to that point where all of the Digidestined come together and they are going to be thrown into this world to have to fight against a Devimon. Maybe they're going to do something completely different here. To be perfectly honest, I'd like them to do something completely different. I've seen the original series, and if I want to see that story again, all I have to do is just watch it. This looks like it's going to take a lot of those familiar elements that people loved when they were watching it growing up and give it a brand new storyline, as well as presenting it for a brand new audience and fans of Digimon itself. I especially loved how the actual episode ended, not only with a really cool battle, but also with the arrival of Garurumon and his trainer, Matt. I don't know what his name is actually going to be in Japan, but the minute I saw that character, I was like, oh, that is just nostalgic as hell. I think one of my favorite things about this entire episode, though, is how it manages to keep the look and aesthetic of the original Digimon show while managing to update it in the best ways possible. The action scenes in this episode were animated entirely better than the entire original Digimon anime series. I mean, go back and really watch that show. It has got some of the worst animation that I have ever seen. There are scenes in this episode where Agumon fights against what are effectively the Goomba Digimons of this series, weak enemies, and these action scenes look tremendously better than even some of the biggest action scenes from the original show. Digimon Adventure 2020 is most definitely pulling on those nostalgic heartstrings and using that to get its viewers to watch its show. And in that sense, it might actually end up working really, really well. But still, I have to see where it's actually going to go in the first place. As someone who grew up watching the show, I am interested to see what they're actually going to do with all of these characters again, and if they're going to completely change the formula and what the overall story is going to be. Really, I think it's an interesting time for Digimon. It's been sort of slowly but surely making its return in terms of like how big it was. Like, it's definitely gone through a lot of ups and downs. Like, there was that point in the late 90s when like Pokemon and Digimon were like head to head, they were competing with one another, and then all of a sudden Pokemon just left it in its dust. Like, Digimon was done, it was a niche franchise, it only appeared to a very small amount of people, still selling and being popular with some group, but definitely seen as more of like a cult show when compared to Pokemon, which was an absolute phenomenon. But nostalgia is a powerful thing. The last couple of years have shown that there are Digimon fans out there who are absolutely wild about the franchise. You can see that with all the brand new movies they've been releasing over the last couple of years and all of the amazing video games. Really, this is just another big moment for the franchise, and it could end up being something really special. I kind of want to see what's going to be happening next in the rest of the show, and I typically don't review shows like Digimon. I mostly just wanted to talk about this episode, but if you guys want to see further reviews of Digimon Adventure 2020, sound off in the comments section below. I'd be more than happy to talk about this show if it continues to be as exciting and interesting as the first episode right here. So, yeah, there it is. That's my thoughts on it. If any of you guys did have an opportunity to watch the very first brand new episode of Digimon Adventure, sound off and tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it. Were you a fan of the previous Digimon anime series? How do you like the changes that they're actually doing, and what do you hope to see in the future of this franchise? Basically, what I'm asking is, let's have a big discussion about Digimon in the comment section below. So thank you guys again for watching this review. Make sure to check out the channel for more content just like this, our weekly podcast show, The Powerful Nerdcast. And if you guys really want to help out this channel, continue to watch the videos. Hit the like button. But if you want to go the extra mile, please check out my PayPal and Patreon account. You'll find links for all that stuff in the description box below. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you all next time. And as always, stay damn, baby.